It is now my pleasure to introduce our plenary speaker, Robert M. Perkowitz. Robert Perkowitz is the founder and president of Eco America, which is a nonprofit dedicated to building institutional leadership for climate and sustainability in America. Eco America supports many national organizations as diverse as the American Public Health Association and the National League of Cities. Over the last 25 years, Bob has been president of direct marketing and manufacturing operations with revenues as high as $6 million annually. In addition to working with Eco America, he's on the board for the Environmental Defense Fund, of North Carolina, Queen's University Learning Society. He serves on the Sierra Club's National Advisory Council and previously served as a trustee of the Sierra Club Foundation. He is an entrepreneur, environmentalist, writer, investor, and distance cyclist. Dan Barry is the director of Eco America's Path to Positive Communities program, which inspires and empowers climate leadership in cities, towns, and counties. He and Bob are collaborators on many sustainability projects, and Dan will be leading one of the breakout sessions tomorrow morning at 8:30 on applied research and practical guidelines for local climate engagement. But I believe today's summit is going to be offered by Bob. Please help me welcome to the stage Bob Perkowitz.
President White, thank you so much. Am I on? Can you hear me? Okay. Good morning. It's good to be back in Salt Lake City. I've spent a lot of time skiing here at the various places. I built a factory here, employed a couple hundred people, and I've spent in the city for lots and lots. It's a beautiful place. I just get a sense of who's in the room. How many people here are just from the academic community? And how many are students? Okay, how many from government? Cool, they're all sitting together. Oh no, there's some over here. How many people from business community? Okay, who is not one of those people? And like, what do you do? Nonprofit. Okay, NGO on climate and sustainability. Okay, one other question, climate and sustainability, I use those terms kind of interchangeably because the big sustainability challenge is, of course, climate change. And then the question is, where are you in the room on climate change? Do you think it's an important issue? Do you think it's a crisis? Do you think it's kind of an immediate existential threat? How many people think it's an important issue? How many people think it's a crisis? How many think it's a kind of immediate existential threat? Okay, about a third, a third, a third. All right, well, my name's Bob Perkowitz. I am from Eco America, and President White mentioned the President's climate commitment. For the first 5 years of our organization, all we did was higher education, and we created the American College and University President's Climate Commitment, and then got 22 state university systems and 700 colleges and universities to commit to going climate neutral. Now we're doing that in other sectors, and I'll show you that. And then my presentation here is on connecting on climate, like Tennyson was talking about. And then tomorrow there's a couple sessions where we're going to, Dan and Paige Ferry from our organization are going to get into some workshops. Let me get rid of that. So let's get started. Everybody here knows carbon dioxide, keep putting more and more of that in the atmosphere, and the temperatures are going up steadily globally, right? That's what it looks like in a little spirally circular graph. And it's changing the way this biosystems on the planet work. And if you look at the Intermountain states, it looks like you guys are getting off pretty easy, But when you really look at it, you have a different type of crisis going on here. You don't have hurricanes, you do have wildfires and some floods, but you've got this long-term shift in your systems here that is causing this place to have a lot more droughts. And it's very sensitive. The mountains, the elevations, very sensitive to temperature. I never realized how important snow is to the economy here and to everything. It provides the water, it provides the tourism industry, it protects a lot of other things here. And there's this past year, the American Olympic athletes had to go practice somewhere else. Okay. Is that better? Can you guys hear me? Yeah, okay. Thanks. You guys do impressive things around here. These are the fires from last fall from outer space. They're big enough that you can watch the place burning, see the flames from outer space. And they're causing a lot of damage around here and in California. The insurance costs alone this year, insurance companies paid out $12 billion of damages for fire issues here. And the fires are steadily increasing. Even your little bugs are impressive. That beetle up there has been eating away at your forest for about 20 years. It's not freezing in winter, and it's not killing off the beetles, and then there's not enough water, so the trees are stressed. And since 2000, the bark beetles have killed an area the size of Utah of trees, and over 100,000 trees are falling down every day because of those beetles. Oh, by the way, if you want this presentation, I'll give it to Sarah and Josh from Utah Clean Energy, and it'll go up on the Path to Positive site, and you can get the whole thing if you want it. So there are some real risks from climate and sustainability. There's a thing called Davos, and they have this big economic conference every year, the World Economic Forum. And this year, they ranked the global threats to business. All three of them are climate change. The first one is extreme weather. Second thing is natural disasters caused by weather. And then the third thing is failure of climate change mitigation and adaptation. So the whole world is starting to notice that climate change is a big issue. And amidst this, we have been making in America a lot of progress on climate change for a while. In the past year, there's been a whole bunch of different things. If you're into conservation, if you're into nature, if you're into climate, there's actually been about 57 major actions to roll back climate and sustainability regulations and 256 total rollbacks of regulations. And there are things like, removing protection from the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. People have been fighting to protect Alaska for 40, 50 years right now, since their 60s. And they've taken it away from the Department of Interior, and they've allowed it to be drilled on. But there's just every regulation that's out there that has anything to do with protecting the climate and the environment, they're rolling back those regulations right now. The rest of the world isn't going that direction, though. I think that we're going to end up with every country in the world signing the Paris Climate Accords, and the only country in the world that won't be a member of the Paris Climate Accords, depending upon how the next couple of elections go, will be the United States of America. And not all of them are meeting their goals, but they're all working on it. It's a complex issue. And here in America, when we announced that we were pulling out, you might have heard of the We Are Still In Coalition. There's thousands of universities, communities, and corporations. You go to the website and just scroll for a long time that have said that people are going to stick with the Paris Climate Accords. And right now, I think 80% of the American economy in states and cities have said that they're going to stick with the Paris Climate Accords, even if the federal government isn't. So this is kind of like an overview on where we're at on climate change. And if there's only one thing that you really want to have to know about the problem, the U.S. Global Change Research Group, which is 13 federal agencies, released at the end of last year the fourth climate assessment, the first volume, which is about what's happening with the climate and the impacts. And this is, like I say, everybody in the room should have a copy of this, but it is the most unequivocal, straightforward list with all the backup that you could ever imagine of everything that is happening to America and the planet on climate change. ocean peak is more acidic than it has been at any time in the last 300,000 of years. And all the temperatures are off the roof. So we've got a big problem. But if there's one thing to take away here from this, there's probably 2 or 3 things you should take away from this, and that we have the solutions at hand, and we are implementing the solutions at hand globally, very, very rapidly for a global economy. In the United States and globally, for the last couple of years, 2/3 of all the utility scale power that was put up in the world is renewable, not coal, not natural gas. The single largest source of utility scale electricity in the world in 2017 was solar. There were more solar panels installations put up than natural gas or coal or any other source. Right now, there are 75,000 solar panels being put up every single day in the United States of America. And the projections are, with transportation as a service and everything else, that by 2025, there will not be a mass market electric or petroleum-powered car sold in America. This is according to Stanford. They do a lot of research into it, and they're saying 7 years from now, you won't be able to buy a gasoline car in America. So we're moving quickly on the solutions, and if you just look at this, we've gone from 0 renewable energy to 10% in 10 years. And if that trend accelerated at all, we would end up with, 20 years from now, we talk about a goal of being clean energy by 2050. I don't think you're going to be able to buy clean energy by 2050. I don't think you're going to be able to buy fossil fuel-based energy by 2050 in America in scale. You probably won't be able to buy it by 2040. If the trends just keep continuing the way they are, the whole society is moving rapidly toward clean energy. Here in the Intermountain States, you guys are doing your part too. There's communities here, and the one I'm most familiar with and proud of is the team at Salt Lake City, which is committed to going from basically close to 0 renewable energy to 100% renewable energy in 15 years, right? And they're not an empty commitment. There are so many programs, so many relationships, so many things that they're doing to cause it to happen. So if you're in Salt Lake City and you want some electricity, and I think that Utah is going to be so successful with this program that you're going to be exporting solar energy to all the surrounding states. So, Intermountain States moving forward. So it's really, get to the race against time slide in a couple of minutes. We are in a race against time. The situation is getting dramatically worse. There's the farthest north weather station in America or in the planet is at the Jesup Weather Station on the very top peak of Greenland. It's on the ground, but you'll never get to the ground because the ice is still hundreds of feet thick there. And in the first 4 months of the year, their all-time record, usually there are no days where it's above freezing in the first 4 months of the year, January, February, March, April. The record in the first 4 months was 16 days or 16 hours of temperature above freezing in the past 50 years, 16 hours. So far, in the first 7 weeks of this year, they've had 61 hours of temperature above freezing 400 miles from the North Pole at the closest weather station. So things are getting warmer much faster than any of us ever projected. And then the solutions are happening much faster than we ever projected. So it's a race against time. This is Pew. Every year they issue what they call public policy priorities, and they survey Americans and they say, and you don't pick. You can say, I think all of these are important, or none of them are important. Climate change is still way down here. I'm always impressed when I go out. I'm in a climate bubble, and I talk to people all the time that care about the issue. But when you go out and you talk to, let's say, somebody in the Lutheran Church in Indiana, the vast majority of Americans, like only 38% of us right now say it should be a public priority. 62% say it shouldn't. But when you really get to the people that are activated and actually doing anything about it, the number's more like 12%. Environment's much higher. but we do not have the public support and political will that we need to withstand the pressures that we have that are pushing us backwards. We are making progress, though. This is Gallup. Every year they do an Earth Day poll. They're conducting that poll right now. The results for 2018 will be out in a couple of weeks. But if you take a look at, this one in the back is climate change caused by humans or natural causes? And it's been kind of a toss-up with Americans over history. But in the past 2 or 3 years, Americans are coming more and more to realize that climate change is caused by people. And this is the long-term trends of have the effects already begun? Do they worry about it more? That's really the next slide. People are getting more and more concerned. The green line that's spiking up there are people that are, there's people that believe in climate change that aren't concerned, and people that believe in climate change that are concerned. And there's been a huge spike over the last couple of years that people believe in climate change and they are concerned. So people are kind of moving that direction, but it's kind of like the Me Too movement or the Never Again movement. How many people have to be killed before we actually activate? How far do we have to go before we hit the tipping point, like we've probably hit the tipping point on both of those issues in the past number of months, and society is going to activate? That's what's going to happen in climate change, is we're going to move forward, and there's going to be events and events and events, and people, and there's going to be a tipping point, and then we're going to do something about climate change. I thought before our current president got into office that we're in the next 2 or 3 years for that to happen, and I think it's been set back by a couple of years. But we're waiting for that tipping point of public support. This is the race against time slide, and for Paris, they mapped out what they call representative carbon pathways, and how do you stay below 2 degrees? What's the trajectory? The top line is business as usual, and let me just say nothing in the world will be the same if we follow that trajectory. What we're trying to do is stay below 2 degrees. The interesting things right now is that all of the models to keep us below 2 degrees, there's a saying, 1 degree to stay alive, and then 2 degrees is the official UN goal. We have to take carbon out of the atmosphere. Now, if you take a look at this, in the last 4 years, we had plateaued out. We were going toward the middle of this and kind of sloping down, but in 2017, we curved back up again. America curved back up again. And if you take where the pollution is coming from over there, it's about 40 gigatons per year. Fossil fuels and industry are 34 gigatons. Land use is 5 gigatons, so that's the 40. And then we're putting it in the oceans and the atmosphere. We're acidifying the ocean, and we're making the atmosphere thicker. 17 gigatons of it is going up into the atmosphere every year right now. So we have to go this way, and we just took a little wrong turn. We've got to get back on a path toward, basically, we really do have to eliminate all fossil fuel usage, and that's not like 100%, but like 90% of all fossil fuel usage in the next 20 or 30 years if we want to even have a chance at staying below 2 degrees. So what do we do about this, okay? And we think that there's 2 different things that you do. You have to do something. You have to actually make a commitment and do something. If you say that climate change is real, and it's an important issue, and I really care about it, and you're not doing anything with your light bulbs or your cars, or you're not buying renewable energy credits or buying offsets or doing active transportation or eating less meat or doing the 5, people say you can't do anything about climate change. The truth is it's the only thing that everything that you do every day can make a difference in climate change, both in terms of reducing your impact and demonstrating to others that they can reduce their impact. So when you talk about making a commitment, there's a lot of people that may have made what we call a principles-based solutions framework. It's an issue, and I'm going to do something about it, but I'm not really sure what. And then we have the We Are Still In stuff. That's what the U.S. committed to. The other nations did not force us to. America is not getting ripped off. We committed as a nation to 26 to 28%. Totally not good enough. What we are pushing for, and what most of the world is pushing for right now, is to get to 100% clean energy just as fast as you can. But then beyond that, there's climate neutrality, climate positive, climate restoration, and that's what's coming up next. People will be coming up with commitments like one of the churches that I'm going to show you, a denomination, has committed by 2030 with their 5,000 congregations, 18 universities, and 3 medical centers. This denomination has committed to be 100% clean energy by 2030, and by 2035 to be taking carbon out of the atmosphere. That's the next generation of commitments, and that's where we're all going to be in a few years. The other thing you have to do is you have to engage other people, and that's the spectacular team at Salt Lake City that is making a difference, not just in Salt Lake City, not just in Utah, but I do presentations a couple times a month, and I can tell you I use Salt Lake City as an example of a forward-thinking community that's really addressing the issue effectively. I use it all over the place. That lady there is head of the Hispanic Nursing Association. They will tell you, this guy's the head of the American, Georges Benjamin, head of the American Public Health Association. 2 or 3 years ago, he came, 2 years ago, the American Public Health Association did not have climate change on their website. Right now, if you go to it right now, look it up, #1 issue, broken down into 8 categories. He got it that climate change was the #1 public health threat in the world. And now he will tell you that climate change is a bigger public health threat than all other public health threats combined. More people are going to die, more people are going to suffer globally because of climate change than every other thing that will affect human health. So how do we get people? Well, people have got a heck of a lot of reasons for not believing in climate change. You know, if your peer group around you doesn't believe in it, you're an outcast if you believe in it. There's social pressure. There's a bunch of us that were really cared 10 years ago that have kind of given up and checked out on the issue. There's people that think that, hey, technology is going to save us. There'll be a way out of it. So there's not like one thing that you can go out there and do to get people to address this one issue, to get the public to move toward climate solutions. You've kind of got to take it in bits and chunks. And that's tomorrow with the 2 workshops are going to be spectacular. And I'm going to go through a couple of general principles here, but they're going to go through ways to hopefully help you think through climate change and talking about climate change to make you really effective when you do it. We all used to talk about climate change prior to 2008. We called it global warming, and everybody talked about polar bears and rising sea levels, and we're all going to die. That was from the 1970s to 2008, 30 years of the end of the Earth. In 2008, there was a shift. I felt it almost as a jolt where we shifted from global warming to climate change. And the Obama administration literally said, we're going to call it climate change, and we're going to talk about social benefits, and we're going to talk about jobs, and we're going to talk about prosperity, and we're going to talk about security, and we're going to talk about health. That it's all about, if we address it, everything in the world around us is better. There's tons of co-benefits. Absolutely true. You know, but a lot of people thought and said, hey, you know, green jobs, yeah, they're going to be putting up some windmills somewhere, but I'm not. You know, so the vast majority of people, and national security, it's one of those issues, but they didn't really feel personally connected to the polar bears or to the broad general social benefits argument. And so what we have been doing for the last 3 or 4 years is doing what we call personal relevance arguments. And I'm going to explain the logic of this in a second, but there's 5 parts to it. The first thing is that you have to make the issue salient, and you can't make it with polar bears. You can say, my skiing season here is 30 days less than it was 10 years ago. You want to argue about that? It is. You want to take a look at the trends? It's not going the right direction. You want to take a look what's going to happen to us? So it's local impacts tied to people's lives that they can see that are basically undeniable. Once they put that in their brain, it doesn't go away. The second thing is, and what I was doing before, is unambiguous solutions. If Salt Lake City can go from 0 to 100% renewable in 15 years, who can't? I mean, you know, functionally, actually, literally, everybody in this room can go 100%, and every business in every town can go 100% climate neutral tomorrow. You just buy renewable energy credits and offsets. and then you can pay for it now, and as you get toward renewable energy, you'll pay less for it. But people who say that you can't do anything about it, we can all do everything tomorrow. Third thing is personal tribal engagement. Everybody thinks people vote issues. People do not vote issues. People think that they vote values. They do not vote values. If there's sociologists here, political scientists, they will tell you that what people vote is social identity. You vote the tribe that you're in. You have a primary tribe, and that's what shifts you. Sometimes your spouse will shift you, but basically what happens is whatever tribe you're in, if you're in a certain town, 70% of the people, if you're in a certain school, if you're in a certain business, whatever it is, it's a groupthink, tribal sort of thing. So you have to address climate change, not on a one-on-one basis and not on a global basis, but by tribe. Fourth thing is agency and empowerment. You can make a difference. Like I said, everybody here can make a difference. Everybody can go climate neutral tomorrow if they want. And then the fifth thing in the sequence is moral imperative. And the moral imperative is just transition. It is intergenerational equity. It is the right of us to plagiarize or to ruin the environment for all upcoming generations. Is that the right thing to do? So if you embed these things in a logical way into your arguments, you can get people to buy into stuff. And I'm going to give you, one example first. Like our big thing this year is the American Academy of Pediatrics. We're going into children in a big way, nationally and internationally, because I have 2 grandkids now, and I really care about children. But there's only 3 or 4 things you can't deny. But 2 or 3 years ago, when I was in the American Academy of Pediatrics, I would have 10 slides explaining climate change, 10 slides explaining about the health impacts, 2 or 3 slides about what we can do to solve it, and everybody would just look at me and they'd be polite. Now I go in there and there's 1 page about climate change, 1 page about climate and health, 1 page about climate solutions, and 23 slides with little kids. Everyone with a picture of a little kid and what's happening to a little kid. And they're all going, whoa, that's me. There's pictures of doctors' offices with little kids. It's all about little kids. And the pediatricians walk out of that thing permanently with the sense that this issue is relevant to me because I became a pediatrician because I care about kids. So Eco-America does a lot of research in how to communicate about climate change. This is not academic research, this is more marketing research, and we do 2 different things. One of them is process, and the other one is content. And in content, we do meta-analysis. We hire linguistic people. We take a look at all the communications on, let's say, climate and health. We arrange them into arguments and stuff. Then we take them into focus groups, and we talk to people in general and hear what they say, and we bounce these ideas off and see what they work. Then we do a dial test, 1,000 people, sometimes 20 or 30 different variants where we test words and phrases. And we put together Let's Talk Climate in Communities, Faith in Communities, Latinos in Communities, Health in Communities. There's a series of these guides, which Dan and Paige and the other people that are presenting tomorrow will get into. So you can find words and phrases, things to do and not say that are field tested when you communicate about climate change. The other thing, and the thing that I'm going to talk about in a minute here, is process. Because no matter how well you get the words and phrases right, if you don't understand how to connect with people, you don't get the process right. And basically, we break the process down into 15 steps. And I'm just going to go through 5 of these, because they're going to go through all of this stuff a little bit more tomorrow, Dan and team. And show you how these work at scale with different trade associations. The first thing is, it's always about people. It's not about anything else, just people. If it has something to do with snow, it's about people losing jobs, unable to ski, communities going away. It's about people. And so like I start out here and I say, hey, start with people. I start with you. I connect on common values. Where are we on climate change? The second most important thing to do is connect on common values. So if it's a nursing association or whatever it is, we do that kind of program. The third thing, and one thing that I find that most people don't get, is acknowledge ambivalence. And I'm going to show you a few videos. And every single one of them, you're going to see 30 or 40 seconds of a nurse talking or somebody else talking to other nurses. Doesn't mention climate change. And then all of a sudden, somewhere in there, you'll hear them say, well, some people are more concerned than others about our changing climate. Boom. If you don't say that, people turn off. If you come in there and you're pushing your view on climate change toward people, even climate advocates say, it's another person coming to preach to me. But once you express ambivalence with what you say and say, you give them permission to stay in their space and to learn and to share. So it's always important that's not doubt. That is not saying that the other guys might be right. It's just saying some people get it more than other people. The other thing is make it real. This is one of the pictures from, everything we do with pediatricians, is about making it real for them, and you'll see that in these videos. And then the fifth thing is that there's a 91 or 93% correlation. If you don't believe you can solve the problem or we can solve the problem, you don't act. So you always have to make sure that everybody in the room that you're talking to is 100% clear that we can solve this problem. And then there's another thing, I'm going to just mention one that's not on here. Sequence matters. If you start out and like these 5 different things are in exact sequential order of what you do. And I'm talking about, I don't know how many tens of thousands of people we put through dial tests and focus groups but if we have polished this little formula, and I'm sure it's going to get better. I'm sure there are people in this room that have ways of making it better. But for our work, this is where we're at. So what Eco-America does, we did the President's Climate Commitment. We did something called Nature Rocks to get moms at nature. We did a few other different programs. But for the last few years, we've been focusing on communities, faith, and health. And we put together large leadership groups. We have 35, 45, like the heads of 15 of the top 20 health associations, people that run medical centers in America. Anybody that's a leader in climate is on our leadership circle for health or faith. And then what we do is we engage the institutions, and we'll show you that. We develop all these resources because, I did 2 focus groups with ministers in Southern Illinois and Southern Indiana in December. And I can tell you, if somebody says sunspots to them, they got no idea what to say. They know that climate change is a problem, but they don't live in this world, and they're very uncomfortable with the fact that there's so many different aspects to it, and they can't answer any of it, and it might cause conflict in their community. So we try to figure out and give them comfortable ways to talk about it from where they're at, not from where we're at. We do a lot of polling, and then we do a bunch of summits and forums and gatherings, like we're doing the National Climate and Health Forum on May 15th and the National Faith and Climate Forum on May 2nd. So let's just start with health. This is an infographic you probably can't read, but once you get the presentation what happens from temperature, air quality, vector-borne diseases, all the things that impact people. There's one thing to read if you want to know everything about climate health. That's the Lancet Commission Countdown Report from last year. It's produced by the UK, but it is the most definitive, statistically analyzed, well-argued case of what climate and health is, what's going on with climate and health. And the reason why, the little thing up at the top, the American Public Health Association went from a cold start to every year they have a theme like Generation Health for young people, or health in all policies to get governments to do. Last year they named the whole year as the year of climate and health, and every issue of the APHA journal is themed about climate change, has multiple articles in it. So if you're in public health, there's all tons of stuff. So like I say, we gather together, we sign contracts with all these organizations to help them do resolutions, build websites, do continuing education credits, do webinars, do their conferences. They want to do something about climate change. They have some activist members. They don't know what to do. We give them, work with them to do turnkey programs. Like this is the APHA program, and all, there's fact sheets on all the different climate and health things. There's infographics, there's videos. These are all the different things that they break it down into the topics of climate change and the health impacts of it, so that you can see what the impacts are on climate and health. And this will be the first video now. So we have 6 or 7 nursing associations right now, and you're not going to get this because unless you're a nurse, this isn't going to speak to you. But if you're a nurse, this speaks to you.
I'm very proud to be a nurse. Nurses are unique. We're the ones in the closest day-to-day contact with patients, which may be why year after year, nurses are ranked as the most trusted of all professions. It gives us the chance to make a real difference for the patients and our community. Nurses have a long history of protecting public health, from Florence Nightingale, who first brought attention to the connection between health and environment, to Lillian Wald, who helped improve health conditions in New York City tenements. Making the world a healthier place is what we do, and now we're faced with a new challenge. Our climate is changing, and our health is suffering as a result. While climate change may not be everyone's top priority, nurses have a major opportunity to help our patients and our communities live healthier lives.
Okay, so I'm just going to show you, these are all like 3 to 4 minute videos. I'm just only going to show you a minute of them. In faith, the faith communities are moving rapidly toward climate solutions. Every denomination except for 2, which I'm not going to mention, now has official policies and statements that are moving toward climate action. And Pope Francis Bartholomew, this is 80 Islamic leaders that issued a declaration last year. And then, like I mentioned, we work with the Christian Church Disciples of Christ, Dave, and we're going to be trying to get all of them to go climate neutral. These are some of the denominations we're working with: Methodist Church, Lutheran Church, Protestant Church, Episcopal Church, Jewish Council on Public Affairs, North American Islamic Association, AME Church, AME Zion Church, if I didn't say that already, United Church of Christ, Disciples of Christ. We have contracts with all of these people, and we're doing climate programs with them. And this video that I'm going to show you is, that one was nurses speaking to nurses. This is rural pastors speaking to rural pastors, because many of these people are afraid to do climate programs. So if you're in a rural church, this is for you.
This image of welcome greets all who come to our church. This is a symbol to the world that we stand for acceptance. We stand for compassion. We care for each other, and we care for our community. As followers of Christ, we are called to love our neighbors as ourselves. And if we love our neighbors, we love God's creation as well. Here at Midway Christian Church, creation care is a part of how we live our faith. Protecting God's creation means protecting our brothers and sisters everywhere. It extends beyond our church and beyond even our community. Some of us are more worried than others about how we are treating our natural world, about our changing climate. But we all know that we should walk more gently together on God's earth.
Okay. Now, this is, I have 2 for faith here. This is the AME Church. 50% of all African Americans are in the U.S. are members of the AME Church. 50% of those people are in church every Sunday. If you went to their website a year and a half ago, it didn't mention nature conservation, anything about climate change or sustainability. Now it's on their home page. And this is what speaks to them.
I think the important thing, and which has always governed me, is social action.
The AME Church has always been on the cutting edge of our people, and this is one we have to be on the cutting edge.
I don't have enough time to go through this. You can go to the AME Church, go to the home page. You can see it right there. Scroll down, click on. You can watch the whole thing. The thing about this is that of their 8,395 congregations, not one of them had solar panels. Right? We were trying to go out and find a place to, and as an example, couldn't find it, and we had to, So this is the hierarchy of the church. This is 12 of the top 20 bishops of the AME Church talking to their ministers and explaining to them why the AME Church is shifting toward climate change and what they have to do about it. But since they don't know about climate change, we had to tell them about climate change up in the beginning. Communities, there are so many countries. I mean, in China, they haven't set an exact date. Is it 2030, 2035? They're not going to let anybody build a diesel or gas-powered car in China. All these countries, the top people in the top row have announced dates and most of them are between 2035 and 2040, when they're not going to allow any gasoline-powered cars on the road. So, and then the other guys have other targets, either without a date on it or not quite a target, but they've made commitments. 58 communities in the United States, including great big places like Atlanta, have pledged 100% renewable energy, all of them between 2030 and 2035. I think there's one in 2040. So like I say, when people try to buy fossil fuel-powered cars or electricity in 2040, it might be a little bit challenging. We work with national organizations. We're very proud and happy to work with Vicki and Tyler and Sarah and Josh, wherever they are, from the mayor's office in Utah Clean Energy. Utah is moving rapidly is a leader and is moving rapidly toward leadership. The biggest thing that we have is with the National League of Cities. 19,500 communities are members of this one way or another, and we're producing guides and resources. If you're one of the top 150 cities in America, you can do a sustainability program. Ogden, we don't pay so much attention to that. And we only do 2 city programs. One of them is Los Angeles. This is Mayor Garcetti. I'm not going to show you that video because of time. And we do Salt Lake City. And the reason why we're doing these 2 community things is to learn from you. So this is local.
A diverse group of people from all walks of life agree that climate change is one of the most significant environmental challenges, and they can no longer ignore it. Dozens of leaders representing businesses such as Goldman Sachs, Rio Tinto, and the mayors of Salt Lake County and Salt Lake City signed the Path to Positive Utah Declaration. It's a pledge to address climate change. Sarah Wright, Executive Director of Utah Clean Energy, is leading the charge.
What's significant is that here in our conservative state, we have leaders of all stripes from a diversity of community groups and industry coming together to say, climate change poses risk to Utah, but we can come together and find solutions that make sense.
Utahns are feeling the effects of climate change from air quality and runoff.
Okay, that's the last slide of the presentation. What we have here is we have some tossable microphones. Scott, does these things work? Where's Scott? And catch it, Dan. You're supposed to catch it. You always catch it. And so this is, you guys can pass, sorry. I'm being too aggressive, am I? Sorry.
They're not on yet.
Oh, they're not, well, yeah.
So we might do this instead. Are there questions?
Or comments.
These are not up and running yet, but we can get them there. Or comments, yeah. Do you have one there?
Hi, I'm from Utah Valley University, and we just had the Senate, our faculty senate sign on to carbon neutrality. But the biggest question is, because did I understand that you started that 2007 American Colleges, that was you were doing, right? I know Weber signed on 10 years ago.
Yes, we did that with 2 partners, ASHE and Second Nature. We raised the money and put together the agreements. An organization called Second Nature reached out to the colleges. An organization called ASHE, the Association for Advancement, did the compliance support. So yes.
We didn't want to actually commit to paying the annual fees, but how do you think, now that we have the faculty on board, how do we get administration, the dollars? I mean, that's the thing that's really, what the first steps in starting that?
Well, okay, so the first step is to embed it into everything you do, not make it a separate thing, okay? It should be embedded in every department. There should be guidelines for every department. The second thing is that you start by saving money. You switch to LED bulbs, you can turn down thermostats, you save. And when you save the money, don't give it away. Put it in a revolving fund to pay for the next thing, to pay for the next thing, to pay for the next thing. So, get your hybrid cars, double or triple your gas mileage. The money that you save, you should tell the people that you're working with, we get to keep that money and we get to spend it on the next thing, okay? So those are my 2 things. What people always try to do is, a lot of times people try to set up a separate department, a separate function, and then fund that. But then you silo yourself and you actually isolate yourself from what's going on. So there should be guidelines issued to every department about what they do and how to do it, and the benefits of that should be retained and shared. I'm open to comments too, and criticism, anything anybody wants to say. This is...
Yeah, I had a question. I am a local pediatrician and work up actually in Brigham City, and over the years have noticed how the health of America has actually deteriorated, and the biggest cause for that is our diet. And so I've tried to change the approach in our kids and their diet through talking about diet. What's interesting is how diet actually is also one of the #1 contributors to global climate change and global warming. And I noticed that that wasn't mentioned. And could you make a few comments about that? And if you're looking at actually forming coalitions with individuals and groups that are actually trying to push for diet change in Americans and across the world, because that's one of the biggest threats that we're facing is the standard American diet going across the world.
Yeah. There's a couple issues that are what I call third rail issues. You step on them, you know, and if you tell Americans that you're going to take away their meat, then they don't like you. But you're exactly 100% right, that everything that you do that improves your health with a healthier diet reduces climate change. And that's the argument to make. You know, if you want healthy diet, pediatricians can go out there and tell, if you want to have a healthy kid, get them away from processed foods, get them away from meat, and have them eat more plant, you know, stuff that you could say a lot better than I do. We embed that as one of the steps in our, our guides and stuff like that. We probably should elevate it because it is very empowering. And if you use meat as a condiment as opposed to meat as here's 18 ounces of whatever it is, I'm going to do a vegetable bowl and I'm going to have a little bit of meat on the top. You can have, you know, 2 ounces of meat, 4 ounces of meat rather than 8 or 12 or 16, and cut way back. You'll be a lot healthier. So that's something that I think we all need to emphasize more. And if you want to provide any guidance to us on that, love to have it.
Other questions in the room? Questions or comments? One thing I would add, in addition to the question about what do you do next with the institution, if you can get somebody to get to the workshop tomorrow with the Weber State people and GSBS architects, and they're talking about buildings, but it's that sort of energy first approach, and then the savings that were being talked about, that's really where we started with Weber. Yes, Garth is nodding yes. I mean, they're not going to make it unintelligible for people. So I encourage you, you know, be the connection to start making those links. I think that's a great way to go. There's one coming behind you. Myron?
Alice, is there still a higher ed meeting at 5 o'clock? They may or may not know about it?
Yes, thank you. We will be having the Higher Ed Consortium meeting at 5 o'clock if you want to make connections and get more information there. That's in the program. I don't remember the room right off the top of my head, but it's in your programs. Are there any other questions or comments? Yeah.
Hi, thank you. I'm a librarian, and I think that it's important to get kids to, to think about those things themselves, engaging them, and there's that age where they really are interested in sort of moral imperatives and moral equivalencies, and they want to be fair and they want to protect the planet, and I just think there are a lot of resources out there that are trying to to teach them at the schools and at other informational gathering, and and they're going to grow up to want to take care of their planet and be better stewards for the environment.
I am, if you question the power of kids, just take a look at the Never Again movement, right? The little kids in Sandy Hook weren't old enough. The people in Columbine was too shocking and too soon and too rare. But now when we're having these incidents happening almost every week in America, they've woken up, and on March 24th, There'll be the big national march, and there'll be marches in almost every city in America, and it could dwarf, the Million Woman March of a year ago and all the other things that have been going on. Kids are really powerful. The challenge, we have to be very careful, because if you lay guilt on them, or if you lay doomsday on them, you can cause them damage. And they have to be very careful, even with teenagers. And so, we have not put together, and I have not seen anybody put together a really good, there's different things that people have tried, but a really good way of getting kids, like, what do you do when they're 5 to 8 years old? What do you do from they're 8 years old to 10, or 10 to 14? There's going to be different things that you would do to get them, but I can guarantee you that would all be solutions-based and positive.
All right. Thank you very much, Bob. Let's give a round of applause, please, Bob Perkowitz.